Joining us now, former governor of Virginia. He's a Republican, ran for president in 2016, was going to run for Senate, decided, he's got better things to do. We don't know what the future holds for him, but he's with us now. Chairman of the 9/11 Commission, Governor Jim Gilmore. Governor, good to have you.
Good morning. How are you, John?
Never better. Let's get to politics. In Virginia, a Roanoke poll just out. Tim Kaine up big. Doesn't matter who the nominee is. It could be me. It could be Corey Stewart, Nick Freitas, E.W. Jackson, Jim Gilmore, or anybody else. Tim Kaine up big. But there's a primary on June 12th, only 6 days away. What do you see happening here?
Well, nobody has a crystal ball, but it looks to me like it's shaken out that Corey Stewart still has his organization together from the times that he ran previously, particularly against Ed Gillespie for governor. So I think he's still got that little bit of an advantage. I think Nick Freitas is running as a not Corey candidate, the more mainstream candidate. He certainly has a very libertarian bent. He's supported by Rand Paul. So that's going to be illuminated as time goes on. And then E.W. Jackson's been around a while. He's run statewide. So it'll be fun to see how this shakes out. It really up to the people, the voters in the Republican primary to pick this candidate to run against Tim Kaine, who unfortunately is formidable. And I think that's the responsibility of the Republican Party. I think the Republican Party has an obligation to point out the differences between us as Republicans and Tim Kaine and his approach to politics. I don't think that's been yet sufficiently done.
Well, look, Corey Stewart, barring something dramatic, is likely to be the nominee just because of his name ID. And also, Governor, I've been understanding and some people saying that this could be a record turnout low, like rivaling, I think somebody said we had an attorney general's race in 2005 or something where 3.5% turned out. I mean, people are saying that the turnout for Republicans could be under 5%. True or false?
I think that it depends on how the campaign goes. I personally believe that there are a tremendous amount of national issues to be addressed right now, all the way from the Korean situation, all the way to, Medicaid expansion in Virginia, which is really a national program, national security issues in Europe, economic issues across the nation. These are big issues. And I think that they have to be addressed strongly and vigorously in the campaign, and Tim Kaine has to be made to answer his positions. And I don't believe that it has to be a low turnout. I believe that the national issues are so powerful right now that it may, in fact, be a higher turnout.
Well, a very low turnout favors Corey Stewart, no question, because he has the name ID, he's got the organization intact.
Oh, you mean for the primary? Oh, yeah.
For the primary.
Yeah. Well, it could be very well. I'm sorry, John. Could very well be a low turnout for the primary because I think that the three candidates, none of whom hold public office, and as a result, it could be a lower turnout.
Yeah, and if it is, I think that favors Stewart.
It definitely favors Corey Stewart.
You look at predicting this or making a prognostication. You look at this field, you look at the organization that Stewart has in place, you look at the number of people that just voted for him in 2017 over Ed Gillespie. And then you got Nick Freitas that has a very little name ID. And then E.W. Jackson kind of, been there, done that. And it's difficult to see a pathway for either of these other candidates to win, Governor.
It would appear right now that Corey Stewart will be the nominee. That then the Republican Party has got to carry Corey through the campaign. And it's going to be controversial. Corey is his signature. The way that he runs for office is to be very controversial, and to try to attract attention that way. I don't know how that contrasts with Tim Kaine, but I think the bigger issue is what are we trying to do nationally? What kind of people are we trying to have represent the state of Virginia in the United States Senate? Because we need leadership in the Senate. I'm not sure we're getting it from the two incumbents right now.
Well, we'll see what plays out. Corey Stewart, definitely the favorite there, no question about it. Jim Gilmore with us now, Governor of Virginia, also Chairman 9/11 Commission, ran for President 2016. Governor, this historic summit in North Korea, good, bad, and ugly. Tell us.
Well, look, I think that your listeners really need to keep their eye on the ball here. The reason this is all going on is because the North Koreans have decided to create a nuclear program. Now, what they're in it for is a matter of debate. It could be several things they're in it for. They could be in it to preserve their own murderous regime. They could be in it for the longer game, which is pressing South Korea, pressing Japan with a nuclear option. That is not acceptable. The United States can't allow San Francisco to be held hostage, or Tokyo, or Seoul. So the problem we've got is that the president at this point is taking action in order to try to address a problem which he inherited, which none of the previous presidents addressed in any serious way, and now, unfortunately, we are the ones that have got to deal with it. Well, we're having a summit right now, and I think North Korea gets a lot of benefit from this because they look like they're on a level playing field with the United States diplomatically. At the same time, the United States has to keep their eye on the ball, and the eye on the ball has to be the North Koreans must agree to denuclearize their country. They cannot be allowed to have even the prospect of nuclear weapons. If they have that, then they can continue up the road to hold people hostage, and that's not acceptable.
So one thing that might come up is the North Koreans might say, look, we want the U.S. troops out of South Korea or some cutback. Do you think that could be, Governor, a potential negotiating chip for the president?
Not in my judgment. I've actually visited the North Korean DMZ myself. The Americans have their finest soldiers up there on the DMZ. I was most impressed. But I think that the long game is this. If the North Koreans want the United States to stop defending South Korea, then they're going to have to behave like civilized people, which means they're going to have to enter the community of nations. Now, there's some indication that they want to do that. Their GNP, you know me, John, I'm a GDP guy. I think economic power results in military power and economic influence. They have no economy at all in North Korea. They're starving their people. Their people are underweight, undersized. Their people are in prison camps. They don't have any freedom of thought. They don't have any freedom of expression. It's a really lousy place. And in the long run, they need to enter into the concourse of nations, increase their economy, increase the well-being of their people, and frankly, turn away from this murderous regime. We don't have to do that today. If their goal is to improve themselves, the United States can open that door. But if their goal is to use nuclear weapons to intimidate the United States and its allies, that is absolutely unacceptable. And in the end, the United States has to carry its big stick to make sure that the negotiations go right.
Governor, going into this summit, don't you think that the president holds the cards? I mean, when Kim Jong-un can't feed his army, we've heard now for some time that rather than do training once a week, they have to let them out into the forest to rummage for food for the week because they simply can't feed them. I mean, when you're in that kind of a dire straits and your country has no cash and your army, you can't feed your army. I mean, doesn't that put President Trump basically in a position of authority going into this meeting?
Absolutely, and he doesn't have to strike North Korea, although I think that option should remain on the table. He can use the economic sanctions. They already don't have any money. They don't have any food. They don't have any fuel. If the United States continues to tighten the sanctions, then at that point they're going to have to give up and stop threatening their neighbors, including us. So I think the president does have the whip hand. I think the bigger issue, though, is to keep your eye on the bigger regional issue. The North Koreans may very well be a pawn in the game between the United States and China, with China's aspirations to dominate East Asia. And that cannot be permitted. They cannot be permitted to take over the South China Sea. If they want to compete with us economically, go ahead. In the end, the free enterprise system will prevail, and democracy will prevail in the long run. Everybody always talks about how the Chinese think in long terms and we think in short terms. I think we can afford to think in long terms. I think that we're going to be fine in the long run as long as we don't blow it now, and that's why I'm confident that this summit will go well.
And the president has said, Governor, if things don't go well, he'll walk away from the table. If he does that, how do you think that will play in the media, both nationally and internationally?
Well, I've written on the subject, and it can be found on my webpage, AmericanOpportunity.org, which is my nonpartisan nonprofit. I've written on this subject. I think that the president should walk away. I think the key at this point is to make sure that we can maintain the high ground diplomatically and in public relations. We can't say that we can't allow the North Koreans to make themselves the victim. We, the United States, are the ones at this point who are being assaulted by them. And we're entitled to defend ourselves, and we have to make that point as loudly and strongly as possible.
Let's get to Germany. The new ambassador to Germany, Richard Grinnell, putting some tweets out basically that have raised eyebrows in the European diplomatic community, basically telling German companies, because no more Iran deal, if they continue to do business with Iran, there's going to be basically consequences, a price to pay. Not normal for an ambassador to either get involved in that or to put out threatening communications. And so it's come under a lot of criticism. What do you make of this?
Well, the State Department came out and defended Rick Grinnell yesterday. I really don't think that it's appropriate for me to comment on the diplomacy of the United States and the United States ambassador. I think what is appropriate is for me to tell you that I think Germany is very key. They're the ones that are the bulwark against the Russian incursions. They're the ones that give confidence to the Ukrainians that they can exist as an independent people. I think the Germans are the pivot on the European Union. They're the pivot in terms of the NATO alliance. So I do think that good relations with the Germans is vital, and I think that a good alliance with the Germans is vital. I don't, approve of left-wing governments in Europe, but that's really not my call. That's the call of the people of those countries, and I think that they'll decide for themselves what kind of direction they want to go.
So I guess you're answering the question by saying that Germany is a key ally, and we really shouldn't. I'm not sure the ambassador should be doing anything to offend them, I guess is my question. I'm not sure what the purpose of those tweets were in basically threatening German companies. It would seem to me that would go through a different channel than a public communication by the ambassador. That's just my view.
Well, I think it's widely known that I was approached over a year ago about the German ambassadorship. The president went in a different direction, and I think that's certainly his call. My goal at this point is to try to add as much support for the president as I can in his efforts to carry out his mission to strengthen the United States, to put America first, and not America alone, but America first, and to work together to build up our strength and to build our relations with our allies. I think that Germany is a key ally, as is Japan and Australia, and I think that the United States is in a position to bring some order and sense into the world, and I'm glad the president's taking aggressive action.
Governor, there's 3 seats in Virginia that are at risk in 2018 midterms. District 7, the 2nd Congressional District, Scott Taylor, and Barbara Comstock, District 10. What's your prediction? Do you think one of these seats might go down, or do you think the Republicans in Virginia have a shot to hold them?
The campaign hasn't gotten going yet. We don't know what the state of the environment politically and nationally is going to be. We don't know whether the themes of the campaigns will be nationalized, as I think the Democrats would like to do, or whether it's going to be localized, as I think the Republicans would like to do. It doesn't look to me like Scott Taylor's in any danger down at Virginia Beach. I don't think any opponents he's got down there are serious contenders. I think we probably ought to keep our eye on the 10th and the 7th and watch how that goes and how those campaigns go. Demographically, those things are changing. As you know, my home county is Enrico. It voted strongly for the Democratic governor candidate last year. And I just think we have to watch the demographic changes in this state. At the end of the day, I think the direction of the nation in which we're going has got to be understood by the people of Virginia, and they have to vote on the direction of the nation. Not the personalities involved, but the direction of the country. And I think the Republicans are still taking us in the right direction.
That's going to be the final word. I want to thank Governor Jim Gilmore for being with us, and as always, his expertise and his insight and his analysis. Governor, thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, pal. Talk to you soon.